To the Cuban people, America extends a hand of friendship. Some of you have looked to us as a source of hope, and we will continue to shine a light of freedom.
This past week, U.S. President Barack Obama announced the greatest policy shift on Cuba in half a century, a move to normalize diplomatic relations. It sparked celebration, condemnation, and in Canada, some fear that we'll soon have to share Cuba's beaches with a lot of American tourists. But look deeper, and there's no need to beat the rush and buy those tickets just yet. Cuba and America are still a long way from being friends.
Today, the United States of America is changing its relationship with the people of Cuba.
With those words, Barack Obama did what 10 U.S. presidents before him wouldn't.
I wouldn't rule out a visit from President Castro.
In the U.S., that's political sacrilege.
This is a very dangerous precedent.
Just another concession to a tyranny.
Appeasing and coddling our enemies.
The United States treats Cuba in a way, a very unique and peculiar way, like they treat no other country on the planet.
Mark Entwistle was Canada's ambassador to Cuba in the 1990s, an expert on Cuba's long history with the U.S.
It was always that place, a kind of exotic place 90 miles away, which was a bit of a playground for Americans, you know, American but not American.
In the 50s, Cuba was an escape of sex, drugs, and music, run by a corrupt military junta, owned lock, stock, and barrel.
By the time you get to 1959, U.S. business interests control probably about 80% of Cuban agricultural lands, the sugar lands, about 2/3 of the entire Cuban economy. They own all the utilities. It's an economic colony of the United States.
Then someone spoiled the party.
Give me liberty or give me death.
Cuba had revolutionary uprisings before, but not like this.
What made it very different here was you had a lawyer by the name of Fidel Castro who had been trained as a young politician in the art of media and communications.
Castro did radio broadcasts and met with foreign news crews, including this extremely rare interview on the CBC.
No, the question complete. The source political will be changed. Don't you like?
His media savvy more than made up for his lack of fighters.
By the time they came down out of the mountains, a less ragtag group, but still very few of them, they had created a whole persona for themselves.
Viva Cuba Libre! Libertad o muerte!
Castro's forces took Havana in 1959, and initially they turned to the U.S. for support.
They went in their uniforms to Washington with their beards and their army fatigues and the whole bit. And the Americans thought that they'd been beamed down from another planet. And of course, this reinforced the notion at the time that these guys would never survive.
Castro got a cold reception, so he embraced the Soviet Union.
And then it starts to go wrong.
The U.S. mounted a failed invasion. Cuba hosted Soviet-built nuclear missile sites, sparking a Cold War crisis. And the embargo has been ironclad ever since. Cuba's communist leanings were used to justify that policy decades ago, but this is clearly about more than the Cold War.
I think it is deeply personal. You have a challenge to the psychologically embedded assumptions that it's an American hemisphere. They wouldn't play by the rules.
The embargo is just part of a U.S. policy of regime change. In the past few years, it even tried to spark an anti-government movement by infiltrating the Cuban hip-hop scene. But Obama's announcement has revealed another path. Cuban Americans, once a solid voting bloc that always supported isolating the Castro regime, are now divided.
The time has come to allow Cubans, Americans, people of all places to go to Havana, to go to Cuba.
American business is keen to return to the island.
Everybody's trying to reorganize and excited about the opportunity. Cuba could be the last North American frontier.
But ending the embargo is up to the Republican-controlled Congress. And for all the talk of a historic shift, there's little sign the U.S. has actually abandoned its aim of regime change.
These 50 years have shown that isolation has not worked. It's time for a new approach.
When you listen to the Americans talk about this, it is framed in a way that the previous attempt to overthrow the Cuban government didn't work, so we're going to try this.
Real change will mean breaking old habits and treating Cuba like a sovereign country.
Because the Cuban interpretation of what needs to happen is you will respect our sovereignty, you will respect the Cuban political system. It may change one day, it may not change one day. It's not up to you to tell us what to do.
And that means the tale told to sell change in Washington might not play in Havana.